I know we started earlier talking about, by the way, we started recording earlier, but while we talked a little bit about wine, by, let's call it serendipity, we went to a 3-star Michelin restaurant. Just by accident it's a small town somewhere there. I forgot the name of it now. Yeah, everything sourced locally. So no chocolate, no tiramisu, not anything. Everything sourced, so like from I forgot the word for that in English. From the pine cones you have, okay, the
Uh-huh.
gooey stuff, the sticky gooey stuff, and all.
Resin.
Thank you. Yes, the fantastic, just fantastic, and people can get very creative. Yes, but let's let's talk about insurance and mainly on applied. I will be surprised that people are not familiar with applied if they are working in the insurance industry. But if you don't mind, give us a couple of sentences about applied.
Yeah, so Applied's a really interesting business. By the way, Gilad, I've been here about 3.5 years, and I had no idea 3.5 years ago when I joined Applied who Applied was as well. Because I come from different industries and different segments of the software and the SaaS market kind of before that. But once I got to know what Applied does, it's a really interesting business. So a little bit of Applied, hey, we are a 41-year-old company, believe it or not. 41-year-old company, but I also believe we are one of the largest, if not the largest, InsurTech in the world, focused exclusively on servicing the insurance industry, both on the broker and agency sides. We actually have two agency management systems. And between the two of them, Epic and EasyLinks, we pretty much cover the entire segment of the market from SMBs to mid-market to large enterprises, thousands of customers, running their agency operations on our agency management systems. And on the carrier side, there's also other businesses that Applied has, which connect to hundreds of carriers. So it's a really interesting position to kind of be in as an insurtech provider. And that's all we do. We don't look at other verticals. We are deep into insurance, understanding the pain points and trying to hopefully solve them.
Well, when people look at that industry, you don't see too much competition. It's you and another dominant player in the space. Is it a duopoly? Because from time to time, there are new products who are trying to get in, but it's very hard to penetrate or to capture part of the market.
I think the what you're talking about maybe was the case a couple of years ago. I don't see it
Hmm.
that way at all now.
Okay.
So when I joined, it's kind of interesting, right? The discussion used to be, hey, is it a Coke versus Pepsi thing?
Yeah. And then
I,
you have
I, I
RC
don't think
Cola.
that's a sorry.
And then you have RC Cola and a couple of other
And
locations
then you have RC Cola.
yes.
Then you have RC Cola. I don't think that's the case at all, now, because the market is changing extremely rapidly. So now when we kind of think about it, I mean, just think about the dozens of, insurtech companies that are out there providing some kind of a solution for, even if it's a point solution, most of them are point solutions, providing some kind of a solution to problems in the insurtech space. Right? There's dozens, and there's more and more that are coming up, every day, especially as we think about AI and kind of all that. So we absolutely don't think that, hey, this is like we won this all, and we are sitting here on our laurels and there's no competition. None of that at all, right? We've got to earn the right every single day to serve our customers and to do it in a better way. And I think the market is more vibrant than it's ever been, at least in the 3.5 years that I've been here.
Now I love that you take that approach because it's kind of it's a setup questions towards the next questions of this conversation because it drives us to the tech stack of the brokers and the fact that if there are not let's call the two big gorillas in the industry and there is a little bit of competition, you cannot just lay back and let the technology and the service to the brokers and the agents stagnate. You need to innovate. Now there is change, there is more interest, and that leads. It's like, okay, so what's the future, or what has been the future for the past 3.5 years in the agency tech stack?
So first of all, the reason when I first came here, this just is what drives me, but I'm not the only one. It drives
Mhm.
so many of us at Applied, right? It's to innovate, it's to solve real problems, it's to make the day-to-day lives better. And by the way, insurance is a space where there is so much opportunity for innovation. I would even say so much
Absolutely.
low-hanging opportunity for innovation. It's not,
Absolutely.
so many, people say, Gilad, that hey, this is a slow changing market, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, okay, it may be true, but there is a lot of opportunity to solve real problems. So let's talk
Hmm.
a little bit about the future. The way I look at it today, on the broker side specifically, is the agency management system. One might call a system of record, one might call a digital filing cabinet, whatever analogy you want to use. Okay, doesn't matter. But that's kind of what it has been kind of in the past, if you will,
Hmm.
where you store information, you store all your policies, you store all the records about your clients on which you're servicing. Fine. So that's what it's been. And by the way, the same story is playing out in every other verticals or even horizontal software space. But going forward, that's not what it is. Because if that's all it's going to stay at, I think it's going to over time just kind of go away, if you will. So when we think about, where does it go from here? To us, it's like, hey, that's an amazing foundation to effectively become what we call the system of action for an agency. It's not the system where you go to do work. It's the system actually that helps you get work done much better. It's a highly secure space. All your data is there. But instead of being onerous to get work done, it actually helps you get work done in the critical workflows for an agency. So as we
You,
fast forward that, so I'll give you examples, and we can
yeah.
have a deeper conversation about this, Gilad. As we fast forward that, we kind of look at that as, hey, it truly becomes like a partner to the agency to say that, hey, we are your operating system or whatever it is that drives your agency forward. And it's not something that holds you back. Now, we can unpack that, but that's the way I just wanted to frame how we think about, where we are going from a product strategy perspective.
Should I bring AI now because you're talking about efficiency, or should we wait with the AI for like
Uh,
2 more minutes?
I don't think you can. Okay, we can talk about it now. AI
Okay.
is just a technology that is an amazing, amazing technology. But let's not talk about AI for AI's sake. Let's talk
Hmm.
about what the heck does that do, right? For an agency in the way I'm kind of describing, right?
So
And
I tell
that's
you.
what we get, really powered by. That's what we get excited about, the real impact, practical impact of AI. And I can give you plenty of examples.
So we are recording this. We're recording this episode February 27. So yesterday, what's his name from blog, the previous Twitter founder, fired 4,000 people. Said, we're going to have AI. I don't need you guys anymore. Boom. We've seen the IGV index ETF plummeting. So the SaaS ETF plummeting, and every other day, Anthropic, every other week, every other day, every other week, Anthropic comes out. It's like, oh, we're going to have an AI for financial services, or the financial service sector just public company drops valuation immediately. At the same time, while we are looking how sectors are losing billions in valuation, we are super excited about the efficiency. So before we jump, and scare people that you're going to lose your jobs, because I don't think that that's going to happen. Where's the hype versus where it is today, right? There is reality, and then there is a hype. And then we can add all the things that you do with it, right? So what do you think? What's your take on AI? While I gave this very long speech about how scary AI is for the livelihood of people.
So, and everything you're saying is true. There is a raging, raging debate in the industry. And you'll find people on both ends of the spectrum, friend or foe, right? And we have these discussions all the time. We tend to kind of think that AI is more of a friend to the actual users, to the agencies, to carriers. It is an actual friend because it's going to make their business better. That's the approach that we take. And by the way, we also believe that, just delivering the value of AI, if you have to swivel chair to some other solution, is actually challenging. So when we think about, okay, how does all this come together in terms of benefits, Gilad? We think
Mhm.
about this as, hey, the system where users are going and they're spending their day, they're spending all these hours of the day getting work done. If suddenly that system could essentially be the place where they're getting all the benefits, etc., and they don't have to change their workflows. They don't have to suddenly, do things from a change management perspective, which, by the way, is easier said than done. People think that okay, that's just going to happen. You think someone who's been doing, you know, work in a certain way for years, maybe even decades, is suddenly going to just move en masse to a completely different system? So our
Absolutely no.
approach then, right? So therefore, our approach is okay. Well, take the workflows where people are, make them so much better so the benefits of the workflows can be realized, whether it is in terms of real time savings so that you can do the things that you want to do. What do insurance people want to do? They want to be a trusted advisor for their clients. They want to look out for them. They want to make sure that that client needs are covered, right? Agency leaders, insurance leaders are worried about talent. They can't find people. They want to keep, they either want to attract the right kind of talent and make them up to speed, come up to speed fast, or they want to make sure that the experts they already have can do more. So this is what's kind of going on. So if you just think about those things and you say, okay, can AI help you, do more with the people who you already have?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's what we believe. And forget all this drudgery around filling out forms and pushing paper and all that stuff that gets in the way. That's the true
Yeah.
benefit, right, of AI in our opinion.
So while I started it with a big scare.
Hmm.
Help us to dispel the the AI boogeyman. What do you think is more defensible in the brokerage? What people see all that noise, oh, people losing and all that stuff, but what is defensible? What's going to be here for the next 5, 10, maybe even 20 years in terms of the brokerage?
I think at the end of the day, it is that relationship with the client and the trust of being their trusted advisor.
So the people, you need the warm shoulder if there is a claim. You need the relationship. You need something, a person that you can talk with, not just
A person,
look. Mhm.
yeah, no, that's exactly right. A person you can talk to, a person who understands your business, a person who looks out for you, right? Okay, now behind the scenes, hey, I'll tell you what I think is going to happen here. At least, who knows? Things are changing every 3 months. So you might be having a conversation again in 3 months and it might be different. But, behind the scenes, that person who's looking out for a client, might have a whole number of digital teammates who are helping them get work done, okay, behind the scenes, right? And that's kind of our philosophy on this. But at the end of the day, to the client, it is that promise of all the things we just talked about.
So how are you baking that into your product? Are you embedding AI agents? Because your kind of the colleagues we nowadays we love to talk about the agentic AI as, yeah, you're going to have all kind of minions running for you and
Yeah.
doing this task and that task. How do you bake that into your product?
It's a journey. So let me break it out and let me unpack
Yeah.
this. So first of all, the construct, let me step back. The construct we look at, Gilad, is pretty straightforward. We've had this
Mhm.
whole strategy for a while, which says the digital round trip of insurance, which means let's look at the core workflows that an agency goes through along with carriers, right? And let's break that down. So, okay, so you got, sales and marketing as a workflow. You've got submissions and underwriting as a workflow. You got financial management, which is all about insurance accounting and all the work that needs to happen behind the scenes in the back office. You got policy issuance and policy management. You get the idea. There's different workflows. In each of these workflows, we started about 2 years ago, and the first things we said and we identified, okay, well, what's the opportunity? It's to save time and provide more productivity benefits in each of those workflows. So we
Mhm.
started building specific solutions going after very, very specific pain points that we can talk about. But the point is that we've got different solutions out in the market, which is still not agentic. It's still very much solutions that a user, a human, are effectively using, right? And it's helping them get their work done better. So I'll give you an example. If you're an accounting team, right, and you are dealing with hundreds of carrier statements coming in every month, okay, and they've got thousands of lines. They've got lines about commissions. They've got lines about, how much you owe the carrier. Someone, accounting teams have to look at all that and this do all the manual reconciliation to take all that data, enter it in the AMS, reconcile it with the right accounts, and then, process the payments or process the commissions. Lot of manual work. So we got a solution around that, called Recon, which is an AI powered solution, doesn't matter, but that helps
Mhm.
do it better. That falls into that category of what I just described, tools that humans operate, powered by AI, but get work done faster. And there's half a dozen of these things that we have, out there in different stages of deployment to our customers. So that's one way of adding value. Now, let me layer on top of that, I think how it changes as we kind of go forward. So where it changes is now bring in the agentic kind of layer, if you will, on top. So where it changes is instead of software that you go to and you as a human are still operating, now you essentially have digital teammates that are working on your behalf behind the scenes. You can call them AI agents. I like to think of them as digital teammates. And these teammates are orchestrating work and helping getting done. So what does that mean? So let's take an example. Follow a workflow. Let's say that there are, I know what renewals are coming up in the next 90 days. It's typically a start of a workflow for us for an account manager. I can look at those renewals that are coming up, and one of my an AI agents behind the scenes is helping me get ready for the renewal. They're looking at the
Mhm.
client history, they're looking at all the claims, they're looking at all the loss runs, they're collecting all the data from loss submissions, and I come to my desk, I have a nice renewal packet, work already done, which would have taken me, hours and hours to kind of get ready. Behind the scenes, but it's to me as an account manager. Now let's say I start getting prepared for the submission to a carrier. Well, let's say a digital teammate, an agent, AI agent behind the scenes, again, is helping you pre-fill information in a form based on all the information that already exists somewhere. Again, it makes it better, right? Then you send it out. Let's say if you send it out, now the carrier comes back with different responses. Again, an agent can compare all the different responses. You get the idea. So the whole point in this is you've got a team of digital teammates that are working with you as a human. They're doing work behind the scenes. They're being triggered by different events like upcoming renewals or a carrier sent an email. And so work is just getting done but in a much better way. And that is the core of, orchestration of work, which effectively gives all this time back to the account manager to focus on the client, which is where we started.
How much effort the broker himself it needs to do? Because there is a big difference between the small agency or the brokerage to, I don't know, USI or Brown and Brown. For them, it's like, okay, we have the guy who is a little bit more technical, his IT, versus, well, we're using Tata Capgemini and Accenture to run our IT departments because we are, well, $4 billion company. Is it already baked in? Or do they need to take action? What does it mean from the small to the largest?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head here. I think this segment of users, segment of agencies matters a lot. So if you go to a typical, middle market agency, let's say you've got, 20 to 50 people in your agency. Okay, you don't often want to deal with, IT departments and this
Mhm.
consultant and that consultant, and you care about, hey, I just want to focus on my business. I want to do all that. Can I get a package solution? Can someone just do this for me? And so obviously then we have our work cut out, right, in a segment like that to say, hey, how do we provide more and more solutions? And of course, if there are things that we are not going to do, of course, they're going to, get it from someone else. But when you go up from that, let's say to a very large enterprise, then the reality is, just like any enterprise software, the needs of that broker are very different. They've got very complex stacks. They've got their own, CRM, of course, but they've got lots of other solutions, and all of them need to work better together. So it becomes more of an integrated stack, for an enterprise. So in that particular case, some things are happening in our UI, some things might be happening in, in other, in the Salesforce or Dynamics or their CRM. It's a slightly different, kind of stack, if you will, than your middle market agency. And so when we think about solutions, we think about, okay, what's the best way to serve both of them, which effectively comes down to, of course, have the right solutions, but also provide the flexibility to integrate with others if they so, require that.
Oh, this opens up other questions about the ecosystem, how you integrate with the other services, and so many other things like that. But before we jumped into talking about ecosystems and innovation, startups, new MGAs, old carriers, regional carriers that don't have an API. By the way, I'm always curious about how you work with those guys. How about we'll talk a little bit more about you, your origin story, because you've been in the insurance industry for about 3.5 years.
Three and a
What
half
did you
years or so, yeah.
what did you do before insurance?
Yeah, so my education is a mix of computer science and business. Now, in computer science, I don't write code. Maybe now I will because it's all about just prompts anyway. So, but I don't write code.
Vibe
But hey,
coding, yeah.
yeah. But I love my entire career has been all about building software-based products in different segments. So I'm in Seattle. Started my career at Microsoft, 10 minutes from where I live. Spent about 8 years in running different products at Microsoft. Was fantastic. Went the startup world, right? Built a startup, from like three of us, after a pivot, growing it to something that is meaningful, scaling it up, solving real problems. And then the last decade or so has been at, I would say different growth stage companies, all the way
Mhm.
from, kind of a Series C 100-person, startup and growing that towards a nice exit, towards another company in the ad tech and marketing tech vertical, where I was a chief product officer as well, which was very much the story that Applied has going on in a different vertical, system of record in that space, innovating with data and AI kind of on top. So yeah, so it's been all about, software and SaaS. Effectively, that's been kind of my background.
And then you joined the insurance, and are there? Yeah, yeah, they are. Yeah, I was about to ask, hey, did you learn anything that you can use nowadays? And the answer most definitely will be yes.
Of course.
And we can actually keep that answer because usually at the end I will ask you, hey, give us a tip or a lesson learned that you would like to share. And whatever this question was or the answer for this question, just keep it to the end because it will be, you can reuse it. Because I think that part of the innovation that I see, usually I say, you can find it in the seams, in the border between two different sectors. So if you can use a lesson learned from one industry and apply it in a different way in the border and when you have the connection to another industry, this is where you can have great innovation because you base it on experience and nostalgia without all the pain. But it's part of those. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that's exactly right. I mean, the reason I came to Applied actually is pattern matching from a different industry, which was at advertising technology and marketing technology. But the patterns were still the same, right? It's a two-sided marketplace. You got buyers and sellers of media, you've got agencies and carriers, right? There's a lot of inefficiency. Data can fuel better decisions, right? And so that kind of a pattern. But at the same time, you've got systems of record where all the workflows are. If only you can add more intelligence and data in the systems, and if you can connect both sides of the ecosystem, then there's magic. So that pattern is, I think, playing out kind of here, or will
Mm-hmm.
play out in the years ahead in insurance. So I totally agree with where you started, which is, hey, there are, if you just borrow those concepts, you can do a lot of innovation.
So going back to one of the things that kind of not puzzled, but I find it always interesting. And I'm not talking about the wines in Washington State and 5 minutes from where you live. although they have a good Pinot. I will give them that. I have many other questions, open questions to other, grapes, but it's fine. And especially for the time of the type of climate that they have to raise the vineyards. Um, we talked about regional carriers. How do you work with them to get the rates and connected, because they don't have APIs? They're a little bit back. How does it work? It's like one of those magic boxes or black boxes.
So let me give you the reality of the submissions, kind of the submissions to carriers, kind of what goes on. So if you look at the big picture and you look at all this, let's just say commercial lines, okay? Personal lines is a very different dynamic because you get, real time instant quotes, all those kind of things. But, let's just take
Hmm.
commercial lines. The vast, vast, vast majority of submissions are done over email. Vast, vast, vast majority. I would go 80% plus of all submissions are done by email. So this whole thing about when we talk about making the process efficient, better, okay, let's not just jump to APIs. Let's think about, okay, so if you are sending an email to somebody, then you're getting a response from an underwriter, then
Yeah.
some information is missing, you go back and forth on email. Typically, by the way, our research shows us 2 to 4 weeks back and forth. Okay. And finally, all the information is there. It's underwriting ready. You get a quote back in email. That is the vast majority of commercial submissions today.
So even
So
now, just
even now,
sorry for repeating. So even now,
no.
after about what 8, 9 years of InsurTech and people talking about this intermediate, I cannot pronounce it. The brokers, the agents,
Yep.
you still need, especially for commercial insurance, a broker to pick up the phone or to send an email to an underwriter, because Joe knows Rick and they've been working together for X amount of years. And if Rick doesn't answer, he will send it to a few other carriers, underwriters that they've been on the roster for, and have a relationship with Joe for 10, 20 years. And he will send an email with an Excel or PDF attached with all the questions that he knows that they are looking for, with ISO or whatever the latest code that required to identify the business, and wait, and that's it.
It happens today.
That's
Yes.
so
That's what
it's
happens
not
today.
so it's not only at Lloyd's that you'll see the broker sitting next to the desk of the underwriter on the floor. And so even today, that's how it works.
Vast majority of submissions today. So again, I have an answer for how we solve this, right? I have an answer for that. It
Of course
is
you do. This
not
is why
just
I'm asking the
APIs.
question, because the difference between a good question and a great question is like a good question asked. A great question is it's a question that you have a good answer to.
Well, so let's think about this. The answer to solving this problem holistically
Hmm.
is not APIs alone. The answer to
Okay.
solving this problem is, okay, take the entire workflow that we just discussed, okay, and you
Yes.
articulated it very, very, very nicely. How do you make that better? I think the starting point from a mental model is, okay, you cannot ignore emails as a channel because that's what's going on today. Now, you can do a whole bunch of things. How do you take information that is going out by email,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
how do you extract all that, and how do you convert that to some structured data? How do you provide visibility to an agency of all the submissions they've sent out, whether it was by email or whether was by API? It's all in one place. How do you drive connectivity with the carriers on the other side such that information is showing up on dashboards like that? And by the way, the carriers who respond quickly, might actually have the upper hand because then the agent is just going to go with them. They don't like to wait. So the point is, by taking this all this data that is stuck in documents that are going out by email, by extracting that, by putting that in a single place, and by making it more efficient for agencies and carriers to collaborate in the system versus getting lost in their email inboxes, that's where magic can happen. And by the way, to your point about pattern recognition, I
Mhm.
saw this in the other industry in advertising technology where hundreds of billions of dollars of media that are being bought by agencies and sold by publishers and big technology companies were all, they moved away from RFPs and email, and it was all in-system communication, in-system visibility, even though behind the scenes it's not all API based. So there are
Yeah,
patterns. There are patterns here.
there are patterns and there is human behavior, rational or irrational, it doesn't matter at this point. And I think that
Yep.
you're kind of ratifying one of let's call it the sentence or the ideas that I've been pitching over and over, the topics that I've been pitching over and over again. It's like agents and brokers, while they really care about their client, for them it's not about let me optimize the best product, the best coverage that I can find for the best price. No, they just want to close it as fast as possible, because if they are not, it takes very long, and if they are not going to close the deal and the policy today, it will take another week, another month. They want a quote. They want to get the underwriter, the policy from the underwriter as fast as possible, so they can actually make sure that their client is covered. And it's a good enough.
Yeah.
It's in the 80%, 85%. Doesn't need to be 100 or
Let me.
99.999.
I agree with you. Let me just add one other kind of point because this is also something that
Please
we've
do.
been working on
Please do.
as a problem space on what you're saying. That last statement you just made about making sure that the client is covered is really important. And by the way, you might
Yes.
be surprised to see that we have seen in many cases that, the, I think there was a stat, something like 30-40% of coverages were even missing. They should have been covered, but they were missing in certain
Huh.
cases. And a lot of that comes down to, oftentimes what you find is you find account managers and producers just slammed with the amount of work that it takes to do all that research. So if it's easy to identify missing coverages, Gilad, then
Mhm.
that should be incorporated because the agency does not want to have errors and omissions, all that risk. They want to make sure the client is covered. So AI can also, by the way, help solve the problem of identifying exactly what the client needs. If there are many missing coverages, come up with recommendations such that it helps in the renewal process, it helps the producer. These are also very practical use cases.
So nowadays you're processing the emails because this is the user experience. This is where your client is. Now, we talked
Mm-hmm.
about API. Part of them, if we are looking at the carrier side, part of them don't have it. Part of them may have it, but then there is a question, do we actually care too much? We do, but apparently not that much, because reality is that everything goes through emails. So should I even ask about embedded insurance and what does it mean?
I mean, it's essentially another way of doing the transactional business, isn't it?
Yeah, but so it doesn't work for commercial. It will not work for complex, which complex usually commercial insurance,
Correct.
or actually most of the products.
I think that if you look at most, mid-market to large agencies that we work with, and you ask
Mhm.
the question, hey, what's going to drive your growth? Oftentimes
Yeah.
it comes down to, commercial, it comes down to, cross-selling and expanding into benefits, right? It comes down to, high net worth, personal clients. It comes down to all that. And in all those cases that I just outlined, Gilad, the whole notion of it's not just pure transactional. Advice matters. All the things we've been discussing kind of matters. So I kind of look at that as that's where the brokers can also add value. And that's where when we ask about, hey, where do you think your growth is going to come from? The typical answers we get are in those areas.
Yeah, makes sense. So, you know, let's try to look a little bit more to the future. We talked about AI. Every day there is something else. I know that it's funny. We started to talk with a few people that there used to be shadow IT. Now there is shadow AI because that's kind of people are using. They will use their private account, ChatGPT, Perplexity, all kinds of other solutions. Um, where do you see that coming? How are they going to govern all these different AI companies? And I'm not even talking about cybersecurity or challenges from that side, right? Not criminal or thing. But how is that going to impact that you have all kinds of different solutions that people are using, which is great that they are using it, and let's call it the composition of the brokerage itself and your role in it.
Yeah, so I think different companies have different stances on, how much they control AI tools being rolling out to users because obviously of just
Mm-hmm.
day-to-day productivity gains, but also about how much critical work do they want to just go anywhere versus being more controlled. Like one of the things we always think about and we hear from our customers about, agency management systems as an example is, hey, data is secure. And that truly matters to me. Now, if I can keep the security and I can get all the benefit, then fantastic. Why aren't you doing more? Why aren't you doing more faster? Right? So that's a big people care about agencies and carriers, right? They care about their data security. It's really, really important to them. So I think that's just a theme that I think is important that we don't ignore.
No, it's important. I see that one of the questions, especially for the big enterprise that are going to ask more and more, especially when IT, it's like, okay, we had the shadow IT people bringing in all kinds of small tools into and now we have all kinds of AI, and then there is, as you mentioned, the data risk. Because part of, I think that the challenge or small conflicts between agents, carrier, and you as the pipeline, right? It's like who owns the client, who owns the client's data. Is it mine? Is it there? Now you add the AI element that goes to just bring me more data so I can learn and improve myself. So it's a little bit sensitive. So I don't really have a good summary or question because it's a topic that many people are going to philosophize about, and then legal will give their opinion, and we're all going to be like, yeah, legal, you didn't really say anything. You just like maybe and perhaps, and you're waiting for something to happen, which will keep you out of trouble. But we'll ignore legal for a second here.
Yeah.
Um, no, go ahead.
No, no, no. Go on, go on.
Uh,
Please go on.
Oh no, I'm about to change topic because otherwise I can talk about something which is more sensitive. You guys are a private company held by a PE. How is that? How is that shaping the world for you?
By the way, it's a great time to be a private company right now, I think, with the stuff that is going on in the in
That's a
the
great.
public
That's the
markets.
best answer. That's I Usually I will get yeah, no, it's great. We have great backers. They believe in the vision of the company. They believe in the product. They double down. They give us the ability in
Yeah.
the capital to reach out and to conquer the world. And let me answer this for you. Uh, no, great. No, I completely
It's
agree.
just
It's
yeah. I mean, look at the last quarter, right? Look at the
yeah.
last month. I mean, it's crazy, right? So the thing is, now come back to kind of the investors that we do work with. One of the things that we like is that it's a long-term view. Like Hellman and Friedman, as an example, we've been working with them for almost close to 12 years now. That is not a usual, PE cycle. So what that allows us to do as just the team is,
Hmm.
hey, let's just focus on creating value. Let's focus on making the right longer term bets. Let's not focus on, just the day to day optimization or just short term views, etc. That's a good place to kind of be in. Of course, it helps, as as an investor, if the fundamentals of the business are strong,
Uh-huh.
right? And you can actually pour money. I'm a product guy, so I care about how much money is going back into innovation. So when you can actually spend, hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever back into innovation, when you can bring the right talent for all these problems we just talked about, this doesn't just happen without the right talent. So if you don't have the right people, who can essentially build all the things we just discussed, this is all like pies in the sky, right? It's
Of
all
course.
like, hand wavy stuff. But so what I like is, even in the last, couple of years, we've been increasing our investment organically, but we've also brought in, some amazing AI talent. So I feel like the pieces are there to do what I just described to you, which is fundamentally change the role of the AMS to a system of action, all the fun stuff that we were talking about earlier.
Now, first of all, it's super important to have a vision for a product. Let me take one step. You have a product, it's a mature product. We kind of at the beginning I was a little bit pushy about, oh, there is a duopoly with a little, because that set it up towards breaking it, which has been that cycle open up to innovation and pressure on the market and make it, improve, because competition makes it. And it's great to see the innovation and openness in the past few years. And to make that happen, you need the capital to hire the right people to lead and to actually implement the innovation and evolvement of the product. And let me ask you another kind of a sensitive question. What's a misconception about applied? What people presume, but in reality is different.
Oh, that we are a 41-year-old stodgy company
Uh-huh.
that doesn't innovate, that moves slow,
Ah, now
and
you're
and
using
and
my
and,
own words
and,
against me.
no, and
No.
listen, I mean, hey, self-awareness is a good thing.
Yes.
Self-awareness is a good thing, right? So okay, so and again, we have to show that that's not how we are operating. I don't believe that's how we are operating. Of course, can we be faster? Of course. Can we do things better? Of course. Right? But we are self-aware to know that hey, what gets us motivated is actually innovation and technology to solve real problems. Right? Like
So,
that's what gets us excited, and that's
mhm.
the way we are trying to operate.
So let's look on the other side, your clients, right? So for
Mm-hmm.
them, what what the brokers, what do they underinvest in? What do they need to invest in? Because you're investing now in the product, in the innovation, in moving forward. What do the brokers need to do?
I think a lot of this will come down to managing change management. Let's just imagine for a second, Gilad, that all the amazing solutions are ready. Okay,
Yeah.
let's imagine that for a second. Okay, in lots of different workflows. Okay, so let's also imagine that if they were deployed everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
now you would have all the benefits that I'm talking about, which is, hey, all your employees show up like your top 10%. Okay, all your policies are checked. There is no E&O risk. You're getting the benefits of account rounding. You're getting free growth with the people that you have. All that stuff. Let's say all those benefits are realized. That's fine on paper, but how do you actually change the way users are adopting technology, actually jumping on this bandwagon, realizing those benefits? There is a huge change management hurdle right there.
Amen. Okay, Anupam, we've been chatting for 45 minutes now. Usually we try to keep it at 30, but it was so interesting. So, hey, what's another 50% conversation? Um, what Going back to that original question that I told you we're going to touch later on, what's a great lesson or a tip that you have to share with the audience? Something that you learned in the past and you think that people in insurance should know about.
Well, I'll tell you something that I try to adopt every day in how we work, not just in insurance, but like in just building products, etc. Or
Mm-hmm.
frankly, even just going after a particular goal. It's the whole philosophy of working backwards. I think, this whole notion of visualize what the end state is. By the way, Amazon is where it came from. There's a whole book on working backwards or whatever. But visualize where we are trying to go, right? And break it down, work backwards into all the steps that are needed to get there. That's just the way I think. So all these pieces that we are talking about, that's the way I think. That's the way I encourage my teams to think. Write it down, visualize that end state so it's not fuzzy, and then build your plans kind of accordingly. And I think you can apply that lesson, frankly, to not just products. You can apply that to, hey, you're just talking about change management.
Yeah.
Visualize that end state where everyone is realizing this benefit. What steps would you take in that direction? I love that way of thinking.
So visualize and then reverse engineer it and figure out all the path that you need to take there. Fantastic. I love it. Anupam, it was a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you very much for your time, the effort, your honesty, and candidness to share with us all the weird questions that I had to ask you.
No, I enjoyed the conversation, Gilad. Thank you. That was an interesting conversation. And by the way, I'm glad we did a conversation and not a structured, Q&A. This is so much more fun.
What do you mean? I'm like at question 12 here. I saw a camera here,
Well, I
screen
don't know.
there.
I'm just having a conversation with you.
It was my pleasure, Anupam. Enjoy it and see you soon.